Okay, Kyle, what is the function of the brain chemical known as dopamine?
Great question. So dopamine is really more of a motivation chemical than it is a pleasure molecule. It's really your survival behaviors. We used it for hunting, for building, for exploring. And the thing about it is most people think we get the dopamine after the effect. The dopamine's actually the anticipation. It's what keeps us going forward. It's what keeps us curious. It's what keeps us really effortful. So the thing to really understand about that chemical is it's like what did we need historically to keep us moving forward to hunt? So you'd see something, you get this great feeling. All right, I'm going to go another 20 steps, another 20 steps.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay. So basically what you're saying that this is something that is used as a motivation chemical, right? Like that's kind of like the main function. And that motivation really comes from our history of doing things that allowed us to survive or gave us the best odds of surviving, right?
Exactly.
Now, what happened along the way? Why do people kind of talk about it as a pleasure molecule now, if it's more about anticipation and not the after effect?
So I'll use it as a analogy of just think about a teenage kid. He's 13, possibly going to get his first kiss or her first kiss. And they're sitting around knowing they've got that date that night. It's the first time they get to go hang out on a date. They can be away from the parents for a little bit, meet up at the mall or something, might be able to get that first kiss. The all-consuming enthusiasm and excitement over the idea is probably 10 times better than in the actual action. So you're building up and you're getting this anticipation and you're super excited and you're putting on your cologne or your perfume and thinking about the right outfit. And then you finally meet up and you finally get to that moment. All of that is constantly giving them different dopamine hits to keep them super excited. And like most things, the anticipation is usually where the real celebration happens much more than the actual after effect. Because why? We need to keep going.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay. Now, in your blog post, you kind of talk about how dopamine has kind of been, I guess, stimulated in an unhealthy way quite well, not quite recently, but over the past few years, especially with the access to like instant gratification, right?
Right.
So can you tell us what effect does instant gratification have on dopamine, and how does it result in what you call a dopamine hijack?
Right. Okay. So first with the dopamine hijack, a dopamine hijack is something where it's really high reward and low effort, and it gets repeated often. So then the brain, instead of saying, hey, I'm going to build these skills, it ends up being like a quick shortcut and they don't have to work anymore. So as an example, if you look back to most parents are saying, whack, when I was your age, I had to walk uphill to school both ways barefoot in the snow. And
yeah,
interesting because I don't know how it's both ways uphill, but they found a way. And if you look at that overall concept of you have it so much easier than I do, there's truth to that. We have eliminated ourselves so much from symbiosis and the ecosystem of the rest of the animal kingdom that we've convinced ourselves we're not even an animal. And what do the rest of the animals do? They either hunt or they graze, and they're nomadic. And what we stopped doing is moving around. Now everything comes to us. Our food gets delivered to us fully cooked and prepped. Our entertainment gets delivered to us. We've moved into a society that's like the Disney movie WALL-E. And because of that, the dopamine has now been hijacked, that we don't have any of the pleasure and anticipation of the buildup for anything. It's almost like delivering the first kiss to your door through an app and you just press a button. It's taken all of the pleasure away, and you got to get it more and more and more and more and more and more and more because you haven't earned it in any capacity. So that's where the constant, effortless, lack of fulfillment from the receiving of stuff. It's like everything ends up being empty. So you have your social media scrolling, you got your porn, you got your processed food, gambling, gaming, all of this sort of stuff. And the system just stops reporting or, supporting real world effort. You start just getting this lack of fulfillment and everything coming your way. And that whole dopamine system's been hijacked. So all we think we can do to fix the thing is more dopamine, more dopamine, more dopamine. And we almost become robotic and we lose our connection to self.
Got it. Okay. So now one might hear that and say, oh, that doesn't sound too bad, right? Like we've kind of evolved to a place where now we kind of like we dominate the world. Like it's nowhere near as dangerous as it once was for human beings in the past, right? Because I mean, most people are not like worried about some like wild animal going to kill them or something like that. Like it's not as dangerous as it once was, right?
Right.
Now,
I like to say along those lines, there is a positive to that. I think that's worth addressing is, the nice thing about eliminating ourselves from the animal kingdom is the only thing that I've got to worry about hunting me down is a cougar at Whole Foods while I'm trying to get almond milk. And the cougar is actually, some older woman. It's not an actual animal with fangs and claws that can eat me. And I do think that's a really good thing because the human being, I have no claws, I have no fangs, I'm not that fast, and I can't fly, and I have nothing sharp around me for protection. So I don't know if we would have made it if we hadn't developed our brains to eliminate ourselves from that. So there is a good piece to it.
Got it. Okay. Now, what does this do to a person's long-term potential? Right. Because I think, most of the, I guess, like most of the, like negative impacts of having your dopamine system hijacked will show up in the long term. Right. So can you tell us what it does to a person's, full potential in terms of their ability to actually do things in life?
Right. So for background, I've been coaching 25 years, a lot of the best. And I started in the fitness nutrition place doing fitness for celebs and pro athletes and rock stars and rap stars and really working on people who are extremely intrinsically motivated to leave this world a better place than they got here and also to leave a footprint in this world. And so those people have a really strong internal motivator. But what happens is once you get this instant gratification, you're really shrinking all of your patience and your frustration tolerance. And long-term goals start to feel, oh, that's too boring or that's too painful. Similar to good luck getting your audience to be under the age of 15 25. And paying attention. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the 25 thing is interesting because you think about full frontal lobe development and really getting the brain fully activated, that they have that. And what they've noticed now is that full frontal lobe development is taking longer and longer and longer because of this hijack. So the last thing that's really worth noting in here is that you're really training your nervous system to quit early. So once this has happened, your nervous system is now being trained to that's hard, give up. And we lose some of that, what could be considered a strong structure of discipline, confidence, follow through, etc. And one of the easiest places to see this, if we want to be the observer objectively, is in sports. It's one of the few places that we can just simply sit back, observe, and see what that fortitude is all about. And the long game, when you watch teams in different sports take it all the way to the end of the season, finish strong.
Got it. Okay, so basically what you're saying is that it kind of ruins your ability to work on skills that allow you to build something that will be extremely beneficial in the long term, right? Like, for example, whether it's, like a PhD or a business or a certain project, like, for example, if you want to, like make a feature film, I mean, it's a process, right? It doesn't just happen. Like it's a process, right. A process that you have to go down. And I guess if you consistently hijack your dopamine system, you just kind of lose your ability to do that, which is quite scary because I think we're just in the early stages of that, right? I think, like Gen Z is the first real generation to experience this because of the overabundance of like instant gratification, again, with scrolling, porn, fast food, everything is just easy, right? Like easy entertainment and stuff like that, right? Even like 20 years ago, I mean, to like have as many songs as we have nowadays on our phone, it was a struggle to get that many songs, right?
Right, right. And then now with AI, we can use things like
Yeah, it's even
Sono and create our own songs in minutes. It's
yeah.
a elimination of the artistic craft of perseverance and to go
Mm-hmm.
through the hero's journey of creating the painting. Now I can just click a button on AI and say, create this. So once we
Mm-hmm.
have lost that, then what? And I think a lot of times we
Mm-hmm.
don't think far enough ahead. Like, then do we just eliminate all sense of joy, fulfillment, and accomplishment? I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a scary rope that we're walking on. And so what I like to look at is the other side of it is we also then don't have patience. The patience fuse is next to nothing. And so when people aren't doing things like meditating, grounding, and balancing themselves, breath work, coming back to themselves, developing total self-trust, and they start outsourcing their intuition because of this dopamine hijack, that's when I think we start to have some real problems. And the problems are quick response to something that really should be slow, steady, methodical.
Yeah, exactly. And that patience factor is extremely important because the reality is it's probably the most important thing when it comes down to building anything that's worthwhile,
Right.
right? Because like you can work hard, but if you quit after 2 months, then you're not gonna. It doesn't matter how much hard work you put. Like it's the patience factor that really separates people making it and not making it, right? So with that being compromised, it's scary.
Even looking at it in terms of relationship, right? So much about relationships are compromise, conversation, patience, not instantly reacting to the first thought that pops into your head. Good luck to
Mm-hmm.
the future generations celebrating their 10, 20, 30, 50-year wedding anniversary. And so you start to wonder about population reduction and all of those
Yeah.
sorts of things that could happen if we don't learn how to be patient, center ourselves, ground ourselves, and not need that instant gratification.
Yeah, exactly. And then speaking of your relationship, this is kind of off topic, but you can see it in
Mm-hmm.
the like dating scene among younger people,
Right.
right? It's like I mean the amount of single people nowadays, especially in their mid 20s and 30s, is quite alarming. It was never like that 20, 25 years ago, right? Now
No.
there's like an abundance of single people, and I guess this has a role that of course there are other factors, but again that's kind of off topic. But I guess the patience factor and the inability to build something together um is a major factor into why that department is also falling off as well.
It's absolutely on brand with the dopamine hijack because at the end of the day, we get this social media highlight reel or photo highlight reel of what we should expect within relationship. And when we're at this place of thinking that from relationship, what I should get is this picture, which is not the,
Yeah.
or this quick little video, which is not the dynamism of the actual being that will be in front of me. Number one, we think it should be just delivered to our door, similar to our Uber Eats order, versus understanding that it is earned and how you show up in the world. We forget to think about how we are showing up. We think we're just receiving this relationship like it's a present.
Yeah, exactly. And then at the same time, we have too much novelty nowadays, right? With like all of these like dating apps again with social media. I mean, you get exposed to people from literally all over the world when
Right.
historically it was probably just your town or just your small little community. Even within a bigger city, like you have your small communities, right? So I guess that plays a
Right.
role as well because with
When I
dopamine
was
anticipation, yeah.
when I was younger, we used to joke about the idea of the, Russian mail order bride. And it was, you think in terms of like the 90s and I'm in, high school going into college. We
Yeah.
thought that was like a hilarious thing that somebody would find in a magazine. And now it's like, wait, is that becoming the norm where people are going to different places, connecting with different things, instantaneous online, finding
Yeah.
something that is subservient, unrealistic, and unhealthy at its core essence?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And you did mention skills, which we will talk about
Mm-hmm.
like a bit later on, because that's
Right.
obviously probably the most important thing to keep in mind if you want to make sure your dopamine system is being used in a healthy way, right?
Right.
But just before we go into that, outside of it kind of ruining not just your long-term potential, but human long-term potential, what does it do to a person's mental health outside of that factor?
Right. So someone's mental health, once they've gotten to this point of this huge dopamine hijack, they're anxious, they're restless, their mood ends up being flat. They've got no ability to handle lack of stimulation. They need to be constantly stimulated at all times. They lose their meaning for life, their motivation. And what happens when all these things happen? When you lose your meaning, your motivation, and your purpose, you've got a really high risk of depression, compulsive disorders, and people lose their ability to go within and feel a natural internal state of joy, of bliss, of contentment, of gratitude. And so they start looking for love in all the wrong places. So that's when it gets really destructive, is they think, I need to fill this externally. Similar to like a caffeine addiction, right? When you get so dependent on caffeine that you wake up and you're like, I need caffeine before I open my eyes. Well, that's a problem. So if you're like, I need this dopamine hit before I go, like if I look at somebody's morning schedule and say, okay, well, what does the first hour of your day look like? Well, I wake up, I grab my phone, I start scrolling. Whew. Boy, oh boy, have you now set yourself up for failure. Absolutely set up for failure at that point.
Yeah. Okay. Now, can you just tell us like different examples of I guess things that kill your dopamine system? Again, we all know like the obvious ones, right? Scrolling, porn, fast food, and stuff like that. But what other things do people do on a daily basis that do contribute to this?
Ultra processed food. So I come from a clinical nutrition background. So one things that people don't understand is how much of your happy hormones, your serotonin, which is 95% of it, is actually, even though we consider it a brain chemical, it's actually produced in your gut. So when people are not treating their body like a temple and their mind like a sanctuary, they're taking their body and they're treating it like a trash system. And that throws off all of the wiring, because the body is very smart, but it's all day long going, I am under attack. And when the body is under attack all day long, what is it going to do? Well, it's going to look for more dopamine. Just give me something to distract me from the aches and the pains and the inflammation. And then if they just try to handle that through a typical Western model, they're going to just be handed a pill for it and a label for it. Like, oh, I have ADHD, or I have this, or I have that. And that label becomes the gateway for a justification for victimhood instead of self-responsibility.
That's pretty interesting. So like the food quality, like the type of food that you eat plays a role in the, like healthy stimulation or unhealthy stimulation of serotonin and dopamine, which is something that people tend to ignore, right?
Absolutely. And just simply your nervous system in general, because your body is a very smart mechanism and it can handle and stay alive. It's very resilient. It can handle and stay alive through weather conditions, through attacks. It rebuilds, repairs, replaces itself, right? You get a cut, the cut magically heals itself.
Yeah.
What we don't realize, because of marketing and advertising and everything, is that the body is under consistent attack all day long by the decisions we are making, from what goes from our hand to our mouth and what we're putting in our system. And if we're not honoring this vessel, and we're basically similar to the dopamine hijack, just trying to solve the problem through the distraction of the food. Can I just get other happy hormones going in my system so I don't have to sit down and go within and realize who I am and what do I want in life and what's my motivation, my purpose? Instead, I can just take the drugs in that aren't even labeled drugs, although they should be. Then, hey, I'm getting my dopamine fix. I'm feeling really good. But what happens? Ups and downs all day long. there's no centeredness, there's no groundedness, and there's no emitting of natural joy, which is your birthright.
Hmm. Okay, now this might be a bit off topic, but like, what are some, I guess, food options that people can look into if they want to stimulate healthy dopamine? Like, yeah.
Great question. So really for me, what that all comes down to is the idea of detoxification. So before you focus on what to add in, similar to like, hey, what social media should I be watching? And I look at your phone and I say, wow, well, you've been watching social media for 7 hours a day. Why don't we start with a detox? Let's bring that thing down to next to nothing so you have no addiction to it, and then slowly integrate it back in. So the same thing goes for the food. The first thing you're going to want to do is say, what am I putting in my body that doesn't spoil quickly? That's probably the first thing I'm going to want to look at, right? You've seen the idea with certain fast food restaurants where they've taken the burger patties and the fries and the different stuff from those places, and they're like, hey, this is 20 years old and it looks just like it did when I bought it. That's alarming. So the idea of real food, ideally you can get way more comprehensive of what is right for your body, because one person's poison is the other person's medicine. But at its core essence, getting into the idea of real food that is made from, nature. Mother Nature did a really, really good job figuring out how to treat us well and heal us. And we then, through this process of overstimulation, have pushed it the other way. So short, quick bursts in the beginning, long-term detriment.
Okay, so basically you're saying that you want to focus on foods that don't spoil quickly.
Right.
Right? That's really interesting. So would milk be bad in this case?
Oh, no. You want to focus on foods that do spoil quickly.
Oh, okay. Got it. You
Meats,
want to focus on foods that do spoil quickly.
Vegetables, fruits and nuts, seeds, things that you would keep in your refrigerator because it's made from Mother Nature. At its core essence is Mother Nature is the greatest chef. She did a really good job setting up the types of foods that belong in our body. We, in our desire for faster, quicker, easier, have, yes, given ourselves the ability to have this overabundance, but we've denatured food. So just coming back to nature, understanding nature did a really good job, and nature has no incentive the way a business, industry, capitalistic company does to set you up to try to sell you something, right? I haven't seen a commercial that's like, hey, eat more broccoli. Like there's no money. There's no money in that.
There's no money in that. Yeah.
Right. It's a capitalistic failure. So I would sit back then and say, well, let's not worry about the broccoli association of my country. Let's worry more on like, thank you, Mother Nature. You did a really good job making sure that we are nourished and we have all the things that we need. And what did we do historically before we messed everything up? And again, when we do that, our whole holistic ecosystem gets way more harmonized. And when we're harmonized, we can trust ourselves more. We can eat really good, clean foods. We think better. And since we aren't under attack, our peripheral vision opens up. Kind of like a really good athlete that gets into flow state. They can see everything that's going on all at once, so they know where to put a ball at a different time, versus when we're under stress, including the food we're putting in, everything goes here. So it's like, just feed me this dopamine hit right here instead of centering the system and being able to see the whole playing field of life.
Got it. Okay, so I guess the main two ideas that you want to keep in mind, as you just mentioned, is foods that aren't too processed, right? I guess that's the main one, and then second one is foods that do spoil quickly, because sometimes someone might say, oh, like a cupcake will spoil quickly, but I guess that's not necessarily what you want to be.
Right, but you could leave
eating all day long.
You could leave your cupcakes out for a good 2-3 days and still not get food.
Yeah.
And the piece of it that spoils quickly in the cupcake is the part that's the real food, the egg.
Yeah.
That you probably used to make the cupcake.
The milk. Yeah.
Right? The egg, the milk, the real food that was mixed in there, not the preservatives, right? So
Got it.
just
Yeah.
think about what a preservative is, right? It's to preserve.
Hmm.
So does it exist in
Exactly.
nature? No, I've never seen a preservative tree anywhere, but there are things
Hmm.
in nature that will preserve things. It's a little different.
Absolutely. Got it. Got it. Okay. So you mentioned detoxification, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a major part of your blog post on dopamine, which is, what we're
Mm-hmm.
doing this podcast on. So let's go through a few different methods that you talk about, if people want to kind of rewire their hijacked dopamine system, right?
Right.
So the first method that you talk about is doing a dopamine detox and pressing reset. Can you go
Mm-hmm.
into how this works and how people can actually apply this into their own life?
Great question. So at its core essence, I wouldn't look at this as total deprivation for the rest of your life, because that's too much, right? And then now you're just thinking about what you're missing instead of thinking about I'm establishing healthy new habits and I'm resetting my system. So when you want to go reset, the first thing you want to do is an intentional reduction. That's the idea, is I'm being intentional. I'm being conscious about this. What we don't realize is that most of this stuff we have turned over to our subconscious mind. Similar to if you're driving a car, right? So if you're driving a car, my car is completely turned over to my subconscious mind, and I'm talking to you, probably sit next to me, maybe sing along to a song, and I somehow get to where I'm going. But not when I'm 16, where I'm like, okay, what is this? 10, 2, gas, brake, right? Now I'm completely
Yeah.
conscious in this process. So the same thing
Hmm.
goes with the reset. It's the idea of setting your intentions. Basically just means be intentional about what you're doing. Bring it back to your conscious mind. And the way you do that is, first, remove the biggest hijackers first. And that's going to be an individualistic thing. If social media is your biggest hijacker, say, hey, I'm going on a detox. I'm cutting it out for a little bit. If it's, I've got a Netflix problem, cut that out a little bit. Look at
Yeah.
these things. And the biggest thing is, where do I have a surplus? And it's not about just reducing those. It's about then figuring out, okay, what are the foundational, some people use the term biohacks, or, you can look at lifestyle things that basically can replace these things to help me reset. And I want you just to think about 4 things: sleep, sunlight, movement, and quiet. So sleep, sunlight, movement, and quiet, right? We do not sleep enough. And when we don't sleep enough, we get cracked out. We see it on the extreme end. If somebody's like 3 hours a night and they're caffeinated, they're like, okay, I'm going. I'm really productive. I'm in a hustle culture. But we don't think about it in terms of, what if you're just slowly, cumulatively a little bit short? What if you're at 5 hours a night, 6 hours a night, every single night? Well, cumulatively, you get the buildup from that. Then sunlight. We are plants with emotions. Sunlight is so foundationally important. Do not let them convince you that we aren't meant to be in the sun. Have you not seen a vampire movie?
Yeah.
How do you not get that?
Yeah.
We need the sun.
Yeah.
We are sun
Yeah.
operated. We are light beings. And then movement is incredible. Movement is medicine. There's so much unbelievable research out there showing how movement is better than antidepressants in most cases. It's incredible. If you're going to be addicted to something, be addicted to taking care of yourself. And then quiet. Quiet is the hardest one. So I went on as part of my shamanic training, I went on a 4-day vision quest. And as I did this vision quest, I'm out in nature, and I basically have a circle that I have to stay in that's smaller than my little office here right now. And it's like, bye, see you in 4 days. And I had nothing to distract me. I had no phone. I had no family. I had no business to run. I couldn't walk around and just check out the environment. I had to be here now and be present. And in that moment, day 1 was torture. And I think I'm pretty good with this stuff, but boy, oh boy, did I quickly learn when I had to pull everything else out, my brain struggled. But by day 2, everything slowed down and I got really centered. Day 3, I'm one with nature and I'm hearing the trees talk to me. Day 4, I am them and they are us, meaning I knew our interconnectedness at the highest level. And it's from slowing down and getting quiet. And quiet is a superpower that everyone, regardless of age, needs to learn how to master.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's, I mean, those four are things that'll change your life if you actually implement it on a daily basis, right? Now, here's
And
the
they're
thing with
free.
yeah, that's true. Now, with sunlight, how much are we talking about? Like, how much sunlight does the person need per day to, I guess, meet that threshold?
I really like early morning sunlight. So wake up, I'll do my workout first thing in the morning when people are sleeping. And I try to get at least a good 20 minutes, as much of my skin exposed as possible while I'm out doing my morning dog walk. Now, again, I'm not going to be walking around here as it's, 15 degrees on a cold day in Colorado, in a Speedo. Yeah. So there's going to be a lot less exposure during this time of year. And I know in Toronto, where you are right now, you're not getting any sun exposure, but you'll be surprised, even on the cloudy, snowy days, you're still getting the penetration of those rays coming in, regardless of if it's affecting the melanin or not. You're still getting the health benefits in many ways. So understanding that as its core essence is great. So, a good 20 minutes is fine. Think of it, if you really want to simplify all of this, here's what I would do. We understand if we undercook our food, we're going to get food poisoning, right? If I have a chicken and I put it in the oven and it's not hot enough and it's not long enough, it's not going to be too good. And it's pretty obvious. And if I put that chicken in there way too long, well, now it's turned into a dog biscuit because my kids and my wife aren't eating them and I'm not either. So at the core essence, we have a natural feedback system that's pretty good, where it will be your skin's burning. And again, if you naturally have more melanin, it's not going to burn, but you're going to be like, man, I feel like I've been in the oven a little too long. And so we're going to get really clear instant feedback where you'll still feel a level of warmth on your skin, which is like, I'm probably cooking right now. I should get inside. So just listen and slow down. And naturally, I think we have all the answers within.
Yeah, exactly. And then, doing it in the morning early is probably something that, can work for many people, because a lot of people, they're kind of worried about like skin aging or like skin cancer and stuff like that. But if you do it in the morning, the UVI index is extremely low, right? So like it's not really going to be that big of a deal, right? Because normally after like UVI index 3 is when things start to get problematic. But if you do it early morning, it's not really a thing. It's not there yet, right? That's something that's really good.
And again, if you want a really easy understanding of hours, you're pretty close to that 10 to 2 on the steering wheel. Maybe it's going to 3 or 4. But if you just want to remember something, when should I not be out in the sun as much, skin open, think just like the steering wheel, 10 and 2. That's a really easy to remember.
Yeah. 10 to 2, like 11 to 4, like those are standards that are put out quite often. Now, what if someone were to take a vitamin D pill instead of going outside in the sun? Is that the same thing, or it just doesn't work the same?
It's helpful. You do still want to make sure you're getting enough vitamin D. Coming from a clinical nutrition background, I do understand that you're not going to get as much in the sun, and you probably need more vitamin D during times, especially if you're living in a place where Mother Nature didn't intend you to live, like Toronto.
Well, that's funny, eh?
yeah. Right. We're living in these Nordic places. If you think about it, we do all originate from Africa.
Especially me. You know what I mean?
Heck yeah. And at its core essence, all of humanity, at its core essence, was southern, in Africa. And then we expanded out from there. We became this diaspora. So at its core essence, we are meant to be in really beautiful, sunny places, but we are naturally curious animal that decided to go explore the rest of the world and say, hey, there's too many people living here. Let's go check out this part of the world. So comes with its pros and cons, just like with the food.
Absolutely. Shout out to Toronto. That's always my city, though. Don't worry about it.
Love Toronto, and I grew up in Chicago, another place.
Oh, not bad. It's pretty close. Yeah.
Well, same thing. The winter sort of hates you. It's like you probably shouldn't be here, so go hibernate a little bit and then come back out, and you'll be okay after that. We'll take care of you.
Absolutely.
But it builds grit. It builds character.
Yeah, of course. Now, you also spoke about quiet time, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much are we looking at in that regard as well? Because I mean, for a lot of people, this is, I mean, as you mentioned, it's tough, right? Because people tend to be on the go, quite
Right.
a bit. So like, how much are we looking at here? And like, because sometimes you might consider driving to work as quiet time, but like you're
Not,
still kind of
not the same.
amped up during that time. You know what I mean?
No,
Exactly.
if you go
So,
into a meditative state and you slow your brain waves down to alpha, driving a
yeah,
car, you will be getting an accident unless you have a Tesla that can drive you.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
and then they're still watching your eyes, so you're going to have a problem. Here's the thing with quiet time. One of my favorite quotes is this, is that meditate 20 minutes a day. And if you don't have 20 minutes a day to meditate an hour. Meaning, if you really are falling trap to the matrix of the hustle culture, you're missing the boat. And hustle could be one of your biggest dopamine addiction problems. And I know that from my own experience. My book comes out the 11th, which is tomorrow right now for when we're recording.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is called Total Self-Trust. And it's that idea of understanding that you do need to break free from that burnout mindset, which is hustle culture is a joke. So a lot of times we fight to the death. I do not have time for this. And I used to be this person I worked with my dad, for example. We had a meal replacement shake company that we sold in places like Whole Foods, and we had it for 17 years. And on top of my coaching business, I was also running that and had a family and little kids. So think about the go, 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 go. And I had this badge of honor of I work 100 hours a week. Whoop-dee. Congratulations. Big deal. But I would be like, I don't have time for this conversation. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. If you really don't have time for something, the truth is the first step in any kind of transformation is admitting you have a problem. So the answer to I don't have time for this should really start with I have really crappy priorities. Now, if that is something that just got you really inflamed because you have young children, guess what? You're right. You don't have time for that much meditation when you have a young kid because you've just dedicated your entire life to that kid. Awesome. So in that case, when your kid finally takes a little nap, that's a great time. I know you have a million other things to do, but give yourself 5 minutes and just sit there and breathe. And again, if you can't make those conditions work, everybody has time for one breath, right? Just think of a patience fuse like this and this at its core essence. And if you're like, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for this, just like stop, come back to the breath. Okay, just one quick breath. Did that ruin our interview? No, I made the time for it. So in their day, they can at least make time to continually throughout the day. It doesn't have to be one big thing, but they can just end the moment right now when they realize that their efficiency sucks. They can come back to their breath and then go from there.
Got it. Now, what would you say about like, combining it with stuff like the gym, or if you do work out by yourself, or if you go for a walk in the sunlight, to get, that exposure as well. Do you think combining those two together go quite well, or are you talking about doing it separately?
I think combining things is fantastic. It's called habit stacking. So here's the thing. If you did each one of your ideal morning routines, things for your morning routine, ideal habits, by the time you finished them individually, it'd be time to start your evening wind down habits. And then you've got nothing in between where you can't work, have a social life, anything. So habit stacking is essential. In the infrared sun is when I'm listening to my books or different things along those lines, or I'm getting Zen as much as I can, given the high heat. When I'm driving my car is now a library. That's when I'm listening to an audiobook or a podcast. When I'm walking my dog, I'm listening to something. Or another way that I do get quiet is I'll do a walking meditation, walking my dog around the neighborhood. I do that a lot. My neighborhood happens to be pretty quiet. And I'm like, hey, I got to walk my dog right now. I don't have time for meditation this morning. It's going to become a walking meditation. Way easier than a driving meditation.
Absolutely. And then
less to subconsciously think about.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, it's going to depend on your natural personality, right? Like, for example, if you're naturally a super high energy person, like it's probably better for you to combine the gym, the walk, and doing it, privately with quiet time, right? And if you tend to be more like, I guess, not low energy, but a bit more naturally calmer, it might serve
Right.
you well to kind of, do like the classic meditation style. But it's going to depend on who
Yeah.
you are. It just comes down to trial and error after that case, right?
100%. There's biochemical individuality, which is understanding that my own biology is going to have a very different response to yours, but there's also social and lifestyle individuality. You need to make the conditions work for you. That's the key with any one of these types of lifestyle changes, is you need to make the conditions work for you in a way that it becomes eventually fueled by enthusiasm and turbocharged with willpower. So most people think it needs to be this grit-driven, disciplined, willpower, rigid approach to all of this stuff. Not at all. You should be extremely enthused about doing these things, which is all about putting that right frame around it. Like, I'm so excited to try this new recipe, or I can't wait to figure out, can I, gamify it? Can I last 10 minutes in meditation without my brain going cuckoo onto something else and sitting in that state? Gamify all this stuff, and you'll build up a stability and a resilience to all of it, and you'll also adapt to any of these stresses you put upon yourself.
Absolutely. Okay, that was great. Now, something else that you also talk about is practicing effort over instant gratification, right? So again, can you tell us how people can apply this into their life, and what are like the various effort-based activities that people should start with if they want to start practicing this?
So effort-based is incredible. We all know this from when we have achieved anything that we've done in life, right? If you look at somebody who's taking Ozempic and they instantly get a result from it and they start getting all these comments, but they're taking it secretively, for example, and everyone's like, oh my God, you look amazing. They'll be like, I feel good. They'll get a little dopamine, but then they're also underneath going like, I didn't do crap. I didn't lift weights.
Yeah.
I didn't eat healthy. I didn't get sunlight. I didn't do any of these things to take care of myself. So there's still this lack of wholeness and fulfillment inside.
Syndrome.
Nothing against taking that medicine, especially if right now you've gotten to a place where you can't move. But anytime we've cheated anything, we know this from when we're a kid, right? If you cheated on a test and you came home and your mom was like, oh my God, yay, you got 100%. Like, we'll feel good for a second, but then afterwards, what sets in? Guilt within our own internal compass of like, yeah, I snuck all those answers off of Tommy who was sitting in front of me. It's the same kind of concept.
Yeah.
So for effort driven, one of the greatest things with effort driven results is to think in terms of playing the long game and establishing a cosmic habit force, which is basically, Napoleon Hill talks about this quite a bit in his writings. And the cosmic habit force idea is like, what are these sacred, intentional, conscious rituals that I can build into my day to build up to being the version of me that I am most proud of, happiest with, most content for my efforts, versus letting other people, things externally control my life, right? We all say we want freedom and independence. Like, leave me alone. My highest value is my freedom. Well, what ends up happening is if you don't have structure built in there, you actually don't have freedom. All of your mind, your dopamine, for example, everything's been hijacked by something external that has taken away your freedom. And you are now letting other external influences decide how you think, act, speak. And you're now at the mercy of that, versus having the true sovereignty and autonomy you say you want comes from establishing healthy, systems that fuel you first so that you can then take care of others.
Got it. Now, what skills would you recommend if someone wants to start off with because again, like sometimes you might hear this and say, oh, I'm going to get better at that video game. You know what I mean? But like that's probably not what you're indicating at, right? So like if you had to give people a few examples, what would you recommend?
So the first thing that you should do, I have this process that I use called the E.M.P.O.W.E.R process. I talk about it in my book, Total Self-Trust, but I use this with every single client, which the first thing you want to do is the E, which is envision. And what that means is you want to get a very clear vision and understanding of who you want to be. So if you imagine this is the video game of life, and in this video game of life, you can be any character you want. Well, what character do you want to be? Do you want to be the mopey guy who just sits there and lets life happen to them? Or do you want to be the hero?
Yeah.
Well, for me, I want to be the hero and I want to have a lot of fun, right? I want to be Super Mario jumping all over the place with stars, a raccoon's tail, and taking mushrooms all day long, right? That to me is a hero's journey. So if you say, well, who do I want to be? And you slow down enough to just envision who you want, then you say, what are the places I can look at in my life that will have me be that person? So you can say, well, let's think first about the avatar I have in this video game of life. Well, do I want to be the mopey guy who's like this and walks looking at his feet? Or do I want to be the guy who sits up tall, strong, moving, agile, who can do all these crazy ninja kicks? Well, if you want to be that, it's not as simple as just pressing a button and choosing it. You have to become it. So then you reverse engineer what becoming it means. So you are building your own characters in this video game of your life versus pressing a button, which has no gratification to choose which characters you have.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it, especially for, like younger people. Because like, as we spoke about a bit earlier, the loss of meaning because of instant gratification is pretty rampant among again, especially the younger generation, right? So looking at it as a video game and trying to figure out what character you want to be, and then working backwards from there by finding the skill sets you have to get better at, and then just slowly knocking off one by one. It'll just give you that feeling of being on a journey and moving forward, which I guess will result in healthy dopamine stimulation.
That's right.
Right. So you turn life into a game. Yeah.
This can still be fun. Remember that. Transformation can and should be fun, right? You don't need to be in the gym. Like if you're like, okay, hey, I'm 25 years old and I'm trying to get my life together. You don't have to be in the gym with this rigid, I need to do 3 sets of 15 and move to the next. You can start with something you love to create movement. So you could be like, you know what? I really want to learn how to dance. Dance would be awesome.
Yeah.
And I know I suck at it, but it's kind of fun, especially once I get into flow. So you just start there and you can build up to that. And then once you have that piece in, then you can say, well, then now there's some missing pieces as I move towards mastery and excellence, which are, I need some form of resistance training.
God. Yeah, that's a really, really interesting framework. Yeah, that's great. Now, something else you speak about is setting dopamine boundaries, right? How do you do that?
I think the first thing you want to do is take an inventory. Give yourself 1 hour where you can look at your life qualitatively and quantitatively. Quantitatively, do this. Grab your cell phone, pull it up and say, okay, where's my screen time? Where am I at? Also quantitatively, write down your typical day for 3 days. Journal it. So as you're going through your day, write down, okay, all right, right now between these hours and these hours, I've been playing video games. Wow, this was like 6-hour window I sat here. Okay, for this hour I went to work. Well, how was my efficiency in that work? How many of those hours was I actually working versus getting distracted and scrolling? Oh, wow. So I'm at my job right now, and I actually only worked about 25%, and the other 75% I screwed off.
Yeah.
Ooh. Well, if I'm going to screw off and my boss is still good at keeping me here, I've got 2 options. Option number 1 is I actually put more effort in during that time and I make it more enjoyable, or I go out and I get a different job. Or option number 2 is if I'm going to screw off for that 75% of the time, instead of just scrolling at somebody else's content, why don't I focus on thinking about building my business, creating something that can be proactive? If I'm given time to sit there and read, why don't you read something that's actually going to better you? Think long-term, not just I'm filling a hole, but like, is this part of my becoming or not?
Got it. Okay, and then you would like recommend that people do this once a week, right? Like on a weekly basis, or would you say more of a daily basis thing?
So once a week, you should sit there and plan out your week conceptually, almost like a
Got it.
business frame template. But, Sundays, for example, in the afternoon, sit around and be like, okay, what is my week going to look like? But I set a very clear framework for most days, which fit in, okay, number one, win my day first. I've got all my workouts and everything done in the morning. Two, I fit into my schedule everything. The time with my kids, I put it into the schedule. The time that I'm going to be, on calls, they're in a different color. The time I'm with a client, it's in a different color. So I create really good structure throughout the week. And then I also understand, for me, the color is yellow, anything that can be moved around during the week. But I also understand that framework needs to allow for flow. Things are going to come up all the time. Great. You move things around, you go that way. It's not this intense, rigid thing. It's just like a construction worker's hose or a firefighter hose has a very stable, solid structure that allows for that life to flow through it, that water to flow through it.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So we just spoke about 3 different ways that people can really approach this detoxification aspect of rewiring your dopamine system, right?
Right.
Now, just out of curiosity, if your dopamine system has been hijacked, for example, let's say 2-3 years, right? Like you've been in this rut for some time. In general, if you had to say, like, how long should people expect for it to take for them to like rewire this hijacking of their dopamine system?
I think in general, within a few weeks, you should feel significantly different once you set up some boundaries. So you have to decide when and not just what. So you'd be like, okay, well, there's going to be no stimulation first thing in the morning, right? You're setting up these new habits. Like, I'm not looking at my phone first thing in the morning, right? I'm not going to endlessly scroll without some sort of thing. I'm not going to look for stimulation until there's been effort first. So if you've done things like that and you're designing your environment instead of focusing on this being a willpower thing, like I need to make it to this certain point, you're going to be way better off. So if you've done that, then you will be surprised within a week, you're going to start feeling better. Within a few weeks, you should be like, wow, I feel more like me again. We don't realize with this dopamine hijack how disassociated from ourselves, our body, our mind, our spirit, our natural joy we've become, where we've now turned all of our freedom over to the external.
Yeah, 100%. So basically, I guess within 2 to 3 months, like you should see some drastic changes, even if you've been in, for example, a 2, 3, 4-year rut. Correct?
So I'll give you a clear framework: 7 to 14 days for early improvement, right? A noticeable reset is 30 to 60 days. Deep rewiring is about 3 to 6 months. So 3 to 6 months, you have deeply rewired that system. And you got to remember that consistency matters more than perfection. So, so don't think perfect is the enemy of good is a great saying, because don't think about perfection, because when you focus on the perfection, the second you slip, what ends up happening is now you've tripled the amount of time that you've spent in the slip, because you spent 2 more times as long feeling guilty for it, which is already now making your system feel unsafe. You slip up in something, you miss your meditation, your workout, your food, your whatever, you just go, okay, I'm aware of it. Now at least I'm conscious of it. Let's not do that again. Boom, you're right back into it. Versus, oh my God, I can't believe I just did this.
Got it.
Let go of the guilt and shame. Let go of the guilt and shame and just go like, all right, cool. I'm not aiming for perfection, right? I'm aiming for, right, in baseball, 33, .333, which is 1 out of every 3 times you hit the ball, you're in the Hall of Fame. So they don't think they need a home run every time they hit the ball. So in your life, do the same thing and just go, well, I'm going to be solid. I'm going to be really good with this. My foundation's going to be set, but I'm not looking for perfection.
God, yeah, that's a really good timeline, because it kind of takes away the like ambiguous aspect of it, right? Because sometimes you need standards so you know that you're on the right track. That's pretty interesting. Only 3 to 6 months of consistent daily work.
3 to 6 months of consistent daily
Deep wiring.
work, you will have a deep rewiring. And yeah,
That's
I
amazing.
absolutely appreciate that concept of I need to know a little bit that this is not endless, right? One of my favorite sayings that my mom taught me as a kid is this too shall pass. And that applies to the good and the bad and the ugly. So understanding this too shall pass with whatever situation you're in, if you're like, oh my God, I'm totally addicted. Great. Just start making improvements. And within 3 months, holy cow, you've completely rewired.
Absolutely. And then just like one habit at a time, right? So like spend 1 to 2 weeks just, working on one little habit, and then you can add another one and build slowly instead of just trying to do it all in 2 weeks, which is just going to end up in you crashing and burning. Yeah,
precisely. The human brain goes 1, 2, 3, and then too many, right? So anything after 3, if we think about it, right? That's why so many things are the 3 steps for this, the 3 secrets for that. It's because the human brain can think in that rule of 3. So the most things you're going to want to think about are like 3 things. Like, okay, 1, I'm upping my water intake, for example, because I want to detoxify this system. 2, I'm focusing on daily gratitude. It's the ultimate superpower. 3, I'm going to focus on the one unique thing that's special to me that's going to make me feel like I'm moving towards my goals.
Yes, 100%. Okay, now, because we're surrounded by this like constant instant gratification, right? It can be really hard to fully escape, especially if you're like active in the world, right? Because like we have so much access to it. So if you had to say just in general, because as you mentioned, like, you can't be perfect, right? And then if you're trying to be perfect, it's just going to end up like backfiring on you anyway. So if you had to give someone, for example, a daily limit of the maximum, like effortless consumption that they should engage in for it to not impact their dopamine system, what would that daily limit be?
1 to 2 hours max a day.
Max.
Cool. 1 to 2 hours a day, right? And you don't want to do it right before sleep, and you don't want to do it first thing when you're waking, right?
Okay.
Let's pretend it was hunting a buffalo, right? As an example. You're not going to go, let's go hunt, right? We don't wake up like that. We get going, we move, we stretch, we kiss our wife, we get going, we're ready, we're grabbing all the guys together. The guys are ready to go hunt. Boom. That's not first thing when we're waking up, right? And at the end of the day, the last thing we're doing in those last few hours of a day out in nature we're not in the middle of a sport game. We're not in the middle of a hunt. We're not in the middle of any of those things. What did we do historically? We slowed down. We were communal. We gathered in community, typically around fire.
Yep.
And we sat there
That's right.
around fire, and we connected and we communicated. So
really
extract ourselves out of nature and think, how can I make it work with this modern ecosystem? Well, you know what? I probably shouldn't be watching murder mysteries in bed right before I fall asleep. CSI, right? You're not doing crime scene investigation where, oh, by the way, it's a movie. So you're not actually changing it, whether or not it's real or not. You're just the observer. Probably not what you should be observing right before you go to bed.
Yeah. So once again, that's like the rule of 3, right? 1 to 2 hours max. And then you want to avoid unnecessarily, stimulating that unhealthy dopamine stimulation in the morning and night. Right. And if you can make sure that you're doing those 3 consistently, that in itself would probably make a pretty big drastic change. Right. And then you can start adding the habits and stuff like that.
And then one more thing to think about when you're like, how much of this effortless consumption is safe is, how do I gauge this internally? Well, if your motivation drops, you've crossed the line.
Factual. Yeah.
Just feel into it. Like, hey, I'm not motivated anymore. Ooh, I probably got too addicted to this thing.
Got it. Yep. Okay, Kyle, we're slowly coming to an end. This has been a really, really good episode. I've been really enjoying this one. Yeah, no problem. But if you had just as the last question, if you had, because we spoke about so many things in this episode, right? But if you had to give one major takeaway for people to keep in their mind when it comes down to making sure that dopamine is consistently working for them and not against them, what is that one big takeaway that you would want them to keep in mind?
So dopamine should be earned, not extracted, right? You want to be a go-giver, not a go-getter, right? We already saw what happened, here in the Western United States, for example, when we took this extracting mindset, which is we need to get all the gold, right? We came in here, we dug everything up, we got all the gold. Like, how pathetic is that? That's the worst animalistic of human nature. It's a scarcity mindset. So instead, think, how can I earn my dopamine, because it's going to lead to fulfillment? And you have to remember, what you repeatedly pursue is about who you're going to become. You're going to become what you pursue. So you want to keep your brain craving effort, not escape. That's super important, right? I don't want to be focused on an end result. I want to be focused on both the effort that I'm putting into something, but effort through a way of enthusiasm, right? View yourself as this soul that came here to planet Earth with a mission to do something really cool, have fun, enjoy, experience, not just be some passive observer that's handed your food and your meals and your life and your business and your job and your friends and your girlfriend and everything like that. View yourself as somebody who came here as a video game character, right? Nobody wants to watch their friends play a video game if the character just sits there and does nothing and plays victim. No, you want to see your friend go out there and be the hero. It's going to be interesting to watch that game. So think of yourself as that character and say, hey, I want to go out as the main character and have my own hero's journey.
Got it. Yeah, that's great. Earned, not extracted. I think if you keep that as a slogan,
earned,
once
not
again,
extracted.
Just 3 words once again. Right? So earned, not
extracted. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will keep that in my mind as well. Because again, in our era, it can be so easy to get lost in the whole mess of like instant stimulation with movies, music, TV shows, everything, right? So it's good to keep it as a slogan in your mind.
And do not try to be normal. Understand that this is incredibly difficult. Bringing it back to a video game, you got to realize most of the people around you got bit by the zombie, right? And they're now in this hypnosis and they're moving and going. And the actual statistics are for most of these things is pretty close to 98%. So if you're listening to this right now, you want to be a 2%er. You want to be one of those 2% of people. So don't say, well, what is normal? Say, what's world class? I don't want to be a normal video game character that dies in round 1. I want to be a world class version who makes it to the end and saves the princess.
Yeah. Absolutely. Kyle, thank you so much. This was amazing. Once again, as I said, I really enjoyed this. But if people wanted to go and find your work, where would you go and tell them to look?
So on all social platforms, I'm at Kyle Emanuel Brown. So it's Emanuel. If you want to look for the business, easy to remember is Rapid Harmony. So anything rapidharmony.com. And I've got the Rapid Harmony podcast now. And then my new book is called Total Self-Trust. So if you go to totalselftrust.com, it'll take you right to the book.
Amazing. If you can send me all those links, I will post them down below and people can go and, go and check it out if need be.
Perfect. Sounds great.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. Really appreciate it.
I hope if you're listening at
home, you got a lot out of this.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was amazing. Appreciate it.